Yo, what up, everyone? What's going on? I hope you're all having an excellent day. I'm going to try turning down my gain a little bit today, actually. I feel like I've been a little hot lately. Let me know if you can still hear me. It's all good. Adjusting with some levels. What's up, though, guys? Hope everyone's having a great day. It is Thursday. I'm in a fantastic mood and finally got a little bit chilly here in Louisiana. So the holiday vibes are incredible. I'm still just thinking about Thanksgiving and deviled eggs and turkey and turkey gumbo and just everything, man. It's gonna be a great day. Hey, so no Aaron today though. I believe he is traveling for work, though he could be golfing. We don't really know. But I got a great show planned for you. Okay, we got a ton to get to on today's show. Now, like all Thursday show, going to be a little bit of like a tapas type of show, right? But we're going to, again, talk Curt Cignetti. I will lay out my case that I've done on social media, maybe not as much on this show as to why I feel if Indiana does not make the playoff, then our entire sport is broken. I want to talk some Kenny Dillingham. There's been a lot of great write-ups on him this week, how he turned around Arizona State so quickly. Five-star quarterback Juju Lewis just commits to Colorado. And really, when you stop and think about it, that's fucking insane. We'll have Bobby Carpenter show up here in about 20, 25 minutes, somewhere around there. As he's, Ohio State great, Bobby Carpenter. You catch him on Sirius XM with my boy Jake Hester. He also has the Bobby Carpenter Show. We'll pick his brain on this Ohio State game. Seth McLaughlin, their center, of course, suffering the torn Achilles. And there's a few different options as to how to replace him. So Bobby will help us make sense of that, as well as preview the game. We're going to celebrate the Army and Navy uniforms for Army Navy. I want to talk Army going into Notre Dame on Saturdays. There's a great write-up on Jeff Monken. Now he's got that program going. I give you a walk-on that's currently leading the nation in tackles. Mac Brown State at USC, a Gladiator too, comes out tomorrow. So, guys, we got a lot going on today. And as always, you want to help the show? Easiest ways to do so, like it, subscribe to it. I think we're on the edge of getting a couple sponsorship deals. Now, you'll be very pleased to know we turned down a couple. One said they only wanted the shows to be 30 minutes long, which, probably makes sense from a pure analytical standpoint. I guarantee most y'all don't listen to the entire pod, watch the entire show, but guess what? I don't give a fuck. The other one, another one said that, the adult content's too much. It even had me feeling insecure. I asked the group text, guys, is it too much? Should I be doing this? I want you to be able to listen to kids with your car, but you can't. And what'd we say? They shout out to my boys. They reinforced me and said, no. Keep it. I said, you know what? You're fucking right. Let's do it. So we stuck by our guns. I think we may have a couple deals coming through. Fingers crossed here soon. But until then, just continue to hit like, subscribe, and all that sort of good stuff. Get OnlyFans as a sponsor. I know. We're going to start our own Royal Pain. No, 30 minutes is not enough. Then again, I listen to 4-hour podcasts of pro wrestling, Roman history. That's how I am too, dude. I don't know if it's like an age thing. Maybe it's for us older heads, but like, there's nothing that makes me happier. And by the way, how does my mic sound? Because I adjusted some of the levels. So let me know if I'm too low, too hot, whatever. But there's nothing that makes me happier than when Dan Carlin drops a new hardcore history. And I know I have 4 or 5 hours of just pure entertainment to dive into. Or, I listen to the Next Lander video game podcast every week. It's about 2.5, 3 hours. We had some talks with Prize Picks. It just didn't work out. They were not one of the ones that were trying to change the content of the show for what it's worth, but it did not work out. Okay, Mike is good. Love to hear it, guys. All right, where do we want to start today? Okay, I want to start with Curt Cignetti. And I know that we played this on the show before, but let's look back, okay, as we sit here on the edge of the most massive game probably in Indiana football history. A 10-0 Indiana, top 5 in the college football playoff, third in the country an average margin of victory, beating their opponents, even worse than Ohio State is beating theirs. At number 2 offense in the country scoring wise, number 7 defense in the country scoring wise. I mean, it has been an unreal year for Indiana thus far. But as we sit here on the edge, let's go all the way back. Zach calls me a Big Ten cuck. If yes, and trust me, I'm only going to continue to cuckold myself deeper and deeper as this show goes on, because I'm in love with Indiana. I've let go of all bias, I've let go of all objectivity going into this game, and I would love for Indiana to win. I guess the main reason why is because I understand, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I understand criticizing a team because of an easy schedule, right? But as we'll discuss with the 2 loss teams, like a lot of these SEC teams that have 2 losses have lost to teams that are just as bad as Indiana's beat the fuck out of it. And they never had a bad day, and they didn't lose to any of these teams. So you don't get punished for an easy schedule when you beat the fuck out of everyone. Like, I guess my problem is I think that people are looking at just a couple simple data points, right? They're looking at the strength of schedule, and they're just looking at like Indiana recruiting rankings, and they're like, Indiana fucking sucks. How do you know that? How do you know that? Have you watched them play? Have you watched how legitimately good the defense is? Have you watched they beat the hell out of a Nebraska team that nearly beat Ohio State and had them on the ropes? Like, I just vehemently disagree. So that's more so than anything why I want to see Indiana win this game this weekend, is to just prove to people that they are a good team, because I think there's a lot of lazy belief that they are not. All right. So here is Curt Cignetti, and when he was introduced at an Indiana basketball game this last offseason.
Hey, look, I'm super fired up about this opportunity. I've never taken a back seat to anybody and don't plan on starting now.
True.
Purdue sucks. But so does Michigan and Ohio State.
Go IU. There it is, Sig. Go prove it, baby. Purdue sucks, but so does Michigan and IU. Interestingly, even though nobody would have expected it or predicted it, guess what? He beat Michigan. We almost assuredly think he would beat Purdue at the end of the year. It would be a complete disaster. Now it's time for Ohio State. And as I said, when you talk about Ohio State, they're also great. But this is your classic David versus Goliath tale. Who said that about where was it? Timothy Harris. If Ohio State's $20 million roster can't win this game, then somebody doesn't know how to build a roster. Maybe hire the IU general manager if they have one. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this as well, is that I do think Indiana's kind of playing with house money, where Ohio State has all the pressure in the world on them. They had all the pressure coming into the year, but nobody would have expected this Indiana game to represent such a challenge. And it would be absolutely insane if David Cignetti, Indiana in this case, if David would be able to put a rock in the sling and knock out the giant with a headshot, because it shouldn't happen. $20 million in his Ohio State roster. And that doesn't even get into however many millions were spent recruiting in these past cycles. It doesn't get into the amount of tradition, the amount of money, or the fact that Indiana is literally the losingest college football program in Division I history. Shout out Turner Young, $2 super chat. You motherfuckers owe me for tapping out in the chat Saturday. I know, Turner, you're my boy, dog. Zach, $5. Turner can't be the only one supporting the show. You my boy too, Zach. Thank you. So here's why I believe. Let's play with some hypotheticals here. An 11-1 Indiana that loses to Ohio State. And I'm going to say I don't care how bad they lose. Let's say Ohio State kicks their ass, okay? I still believe that an 11-1 Indiana should be in over a 2-loss SEC team, or the sport is entirely broken. Like right off the bat. Well, actually, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what people say they know. Okay. They know that Indiana isn't that good, right? A lot of people love to tell me, hey, we just saw this with Georgia and TCU, which I find to be hilarious. Because TCU beat Michigan in the semifinals, a very good Michigan team that won the Big Ten and beat the fuck out of Ohio State. A Michigan team that would go on to win the national championship the following year. So it's a weird thing when people act like TCU didn't deserve to be there when they beat Michigan in the semifinals. Like, that's a playoff team. Absolutely. Now, were they up to Georgia's caliber? No. But who was? No one, right? Georgia was clearly just a cut above the entire country. But to act like TCU is some debate point where you're proving your point is absurd to me because, again, TCU beat Michigan, they won the Big Ten, they beat Ohio State, all that sort of stuff. So a lot of people love to tell you what they know. And my problem with that is that's subjectivity, that's opinion, that's bias. Like, okay, well, so if you're the ones that say, I know Indiana sucks and know they won't do good. Okay. So surely you knew that 4-6 Kentucky would beat 2-loss Ole Miss, right? 4-6 Kentucky would beat 2-loss Ole Miss, who everybody's now talking about maybe like a national champion threat. Surely you knew that 6-4 Vanderbilt would beat 2-loss Alabama, right? What about 5-5 Arkansas beating 2-loss Tennessee? And you say, oh, well, Georgia, okay, we have Georgia, 2 losses and easily the best resume. Doesn't have a bad loss, but guess what? They lost to teams that have bad losses. So my point is, we don't know. You never know until the football is played. And one rule that I carry with myself in life outside of sports at all is like, I never trust the person who tells me they know, who tells me they know for sure. Like even I think Indiana's really fucking legitimately good. And I think they are going to give a badass fight. I honestly don't think they win Saturday because it's in Columbus, but I think they give a badass fight and they acquit themselves well on Saturday. But I don't know that. We can't know until the game is played. And so how then do we seek to make these decisions about who should get in? And at a certain point, I think you kind of have to have some base rules. And the whole reason, sorry, I'm taking off my sweatshirt. I'm getting a bit hot here. Well, actually, hold on. Let's back it up a second. So, you tell me you know what's going to happen, right? But I'm guaranteed that none of you predicted any of the upsets that we just talked about. Again, and then I would point you to an Indiana team that you tell me you know is not good, but is currently 10-0 in one of the Power 2 conferences, third best scoring margin of the country, not a blemish on the record, despite them playing teams that were beyond the same level as Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. So I guess my entire point is we don't know who's going to win these games. So when you trust in your subjective judgment over objective results, you make the playoffs a garden for cultivating bias. Like if we just put in teams based on who we think is best for the results, like why do we actually play the games? And I get it. Did Indiana get a bit of a lucky break in avoiding the big dogs in the Big Ten for the most part? Yes, but that's nothing that they should be punished for. If you leave out an 11-1 Big Ten team for a 2-loss SEC team that would have lost to a team that's 500 or worse, basically, then why are we doing this as a national sport anyway? Why don't we just call it the SEC Invitational? Because at that point, we're just giving the SEC credit for beating up on one another. And nobody else will ever have any, like the whole point of a Power 2, that kind of idea. And it's why in the future we are going to auto bids. It's why we're going to have a 14-team playoff with a ton of auto bids that are just based on where you finish in the conference. And it's going to be less and less subjective, more and more focused on the field, but we're not there yet. But like, what's the point of having a Big 2 if a team that goes 11-1 in one of them gets left out for a 2-loss SEC team? It It just how do I want to phrase this? I have the peace of mind, I think, in this debate of very simple thinking, and that is, you would have an 11-1 Indiana team that beat the hell out of everyone, and their only loss is to a top 5 team in the entire country. Why in the world should that team not go to the playoff when they're in the Big Ten? It just takes all the subjectivity out of it. Now, when it comes to seeding, if you want to do your opinions there and you want to jump one team over another and say that 2-loss Georgia is better than 1-loss Indiana and seed them higher, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with seeding. What I cannot abide by is Indiana being denied a chance to play. It would just be further proof that the sport is broken. I still maintain that Florida State not making it was one of the biggest black marks on the sport's history. And you're going to tell me, oh, well, look what happened to Florida State in the bowl game. Okay, well, first off, I think that's a bit intellectually dishonest because we all know that was not the Florida State you would have seen in the semifinal. But you say, oh, well, Alabama deserved it. What did Alabama do? What did Alabama do after they got chosen over Florida State last year? What did they do? They lost, right? They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything different than Florida State would have done. They would have lost as well. So, why did we always think we know best? Why can't you let the teams that actually earn it with the wins make the field instead of you just telling me that a 2-loss team is better despite the fact that they lost to a bad team? All right, we'll get to some and also, yes, I guess what I'm trying to get at is strength of schedule is never going to be equal because like Sal says here, the sport is broken because there's 130 plus teams in the FBS, half of which have no competitive reason for being there. Yes, so it's a sport with incredibly varied levels of investment, of talent, of tiers, of all this sort of thing, which is why you need ideas like the Power 2. Like, we have to just accept the SEC and the Big Ten are a cut above, and we're going to reward teams as such. When you go too granular in your analysis, you risk just giving yourself over to complete opinion and bias. All right, let's see some of these comments here. Here's the question. Assuming OSU wins, what's Indiana's best win? It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. They don't have a bad loss. It's 11-1. And it's not just like they did okay in these games. They haven't even had a close game. This isn't BYU or anybody else. Again, they have the 3rd largest margin of victory in the entire country right now. They've dominated everyone that they played. Again, Ole Miss lost to 4-6 Kentucky. Alabama lost to 6-4 Vandy. Tennessee lost to 5-5 Arkansas. Why didn't that happen to Indiana? And why should they be punished for winning all those games? Compare win percentage between their opponents, though, so they don't play the same teams. The only way we can objectively compare them. I understand strength of schedule when you're splitting between like 2 teams that are on the same level, or 2 teams that both have the same amount of losses, whatever. I don't understand using strength of schedule to jump a team out of the Power 2. And this whole idea of being punished because they've had an easier Big Ten run. Well, how are you going to feel if in the future your SEC team gets punished because it's just one of those years where you have an easier SEC run? How many teams against the bottom? How many bottom half Big Ten teams have wins like Kentucky and Vandy? Well, exactly. But isn't that kind of the point? We're just giving the SEC credit for beating one another. Like it just seems a little, how do I want to say this? How can you prove what would happen if you put the middle of the Big Ten against the middle of the SEC? I think the SEC wins the majority of those games, but it is not the exorbitantly wide gap that so many people believe it to be. Blasey, the one-man posse, says there's talent all over the country, and Anna brought in 13 players from JMU and a coach that can coach them up. Yeah. Let's see here. If Texas loses to A&M, their resume is almost exactly the same as Indiana's. Yeah, I know. Timothy Harris, Indiana's good. Not saying they aren't, but doesn't a tougher schedule have to count for something? So that yes, it does, Timothy, but it already does count for something. Like, why is no one questioning Georgia being in no matter what in any scenario? Because of how tough their schedule is. Why we basically said that for the most part, we would expect if you're a 2-loss SEC team, you're automatically going to get in. Now, one may end up getting left out this year, but because we think those schedules are pretty hard. So I reject this idea that you're not being rewarded for a tough schedule. You can't just show objective results when the schedules are so radically different from one another. Purely using objective results only work when you're playing round robin in a closed league. I can when Indiana's been so clean in all of their wins and doesn't have a bad loss like these other teams do. I would say that's being solved on the football field. If they get blown out by Ohio State, they should not get in. I disagree. But I do not. I might be in the minority looking from all of this. Let's see. Respect you until this unhinged dribble, says C. Scott Fisher, who cheers for Ole Miss, who lost to 2 bad teams, 4-6 Kentucky and 6-4 LSU. But we're gonna put Ole Miss in, or just know that they're good, even though they've had 2 bad days in which they lost games to teams that are inexcusably worse than, including Kentucky at home. Okay, sure. See, Scott Fisher, Georgia was left out and would have won the whole thing. Okay, well, why was Georgia left out? Because they lost to Alabama last year. Beat Alabama, and you make it. It was very clear where Georgia's path lied. Again, I'm not going to reward them for having more talent and not showing up every single fucking game day like Alabama has. We're all paying. Alabama gave Michigan the best game and should have won. You know you're on a low moment when you are taking moral victories as the Alabama Crimson Tide. As you are the Alabama Crimson Tide. Beat OSU and Indiana makes it. Well, duh, you beat OSU and Indiana proves everybody wrong. All right, I'm about to jump topics here. Let's see if there's any other comments worth reading. Objective records work for the NFL, doesn't work for college football. Again, it's not a one-stop objective shot. But I think they should matter most, is what I would say. Subjectivity obviously has to come into this, and especially with seeding. You want to seed these things however you want. I don't give a fuck, okay? Make Indiana the 12th seed. I don't give a fuck. But the results need to be the main thing that decide whether or not you get entry into the club. C. Scott Fisher continues to show off that Ole Miss education. Penn State would have 4 losses now if they were in the SEC. What are you basing that on? How do you just say these things and feel so right? That's fucking insane. Again, you knew none of the upsets that I just mentioned were going to happen. So how do you feel so confident in saying that? All right. Well, okay. That's enough of that. I know people are getting sick of me on my soapbox here. I'm sure we're going to continue to talk about it more later on. So we'll leave it alone for today. Right now, we got my guy, Bobby Carpenter, host of Bobby Carpenter Show. Catch him on Sirius XM 84 with Jake Hester as well. Ohio State great. One part of the white Ohio State linebacking triumvirate they used to have back in the day. I mean, if you have 3 white linebackers to go on to play in the NFL, that's a nasty fucking group right there. Bobby, what's up, dude? What's going on, bro?
I love you focused on the ethnicity there, TBob. That's a good part of, I mean, it's an interesting part of it. driving that home. It's 20 years ago. So feels good. The term great is, I will say this, gets thrown around. Legend. We get real sloppy with that at times. So I appreciate the superlatives there. Apologize for being a little late. I had to dig around for some reason. My email portrayed you as junk, which I don't think is true.
Wow.
So I had to reallocate that, and we're good to go now, man. So excited to talk a little ball here this weekend.
The Tech Barons remain in Confederacy against me. Remember, Confederacy Dunce is one of the greatest books ever. What's the quote at the beginning of the book? You shall know a true genius because all the dunces will be lined up in Confederacy against him. And that's how I feel talking about Indiana. Because I believe firmly that an 11-1 Indiana should get in this playoff of a 2-loss SEC team, and it's not even close. I don't care if they lose to Ohio State by fucking 40. Real quick before we talk Ohio State, how do you feel on that on that sentiment, on that debate that has been consuming the college football world?
So 40 is a lot. That's a real big number. I mean, 40, I think you could start opening up the discussion like, man, if it's a route and it looks like that might open it a little bit. However, like I started looking around and I saw this thing Fox put out, wins versus bowl eligible teams. Like, Indiana's got one, but so does Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, obviously they've got a big signature win. Like you start looking at Texas, like who have they beat? If they lose to A&M, they'll have played two good teams and lost to them both. And I guess I look at Indiana and maybe they don't have a ton of pros, got a handful of them, Curtis Rourke being one, but they're just a really well-coached team with players that play really stinking hard, TBob, and they execute really well. And I said this, people ask about Ohio State. I'm like, if you get them and Ohio State plays well, they beat Indiana 10 times out of 10. But you have to go there and play well. They are not a team that is going to just give you the game. They will force you to execute and make plays. And, they did that against Michigan. Now, you saw Michigan push back in the second half, and some of their guys up front took over a little bit. But Indiana just didn't fold like a tent now. I mean, they kept battling, and they found a way. Surratt, their one receiver, really good. Curtis Rourke's going to make some plays. They can run the football. They have, I think, one of the top red zone offenses in the country. They've been in the red zone like low 60s, 63 times. They have like 46 touchdowns, T-Bob. Like they score the ball when they get down there. And that's why they're a tough team to beat.
Look, Indiana is what college football is all about. It is a team where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Like, I don't give a shit about recruiting rankings or how much talent you think is on there. I've seen super talented teams fucking fall apart and suck. If it was just a talent issue, then Ohio State and these other schools would win the national championship every single year. Speaking of Ohio State, Bobby, massive blow this weekend as Seth McLaughlin suffers a torn Achilles in practice. He's having a very good year. Now, it's not as brutal as it would be maybe for most teams because in Carson Hinsman, you have somebody who started at center every game last year. He's a third-year junior. He's got a lot of experience. So it's obvious Hinsman moves to center. But from what I've read, you have a couple choices then, right? Like Donovan Jackson had just moved into that left guard role, right? So do you go with Jackson at left tackle, and is it Sareveld at guard, or do you go with Michalski at tackle and Jackson at guard? What is Ohio State's best option for the O-line this weekend?
So here's the thing. Like, they lost Josh Simmons, their left tackle, who's probably first, second round pick, blew out his knee against Oregon. They brought Zen Michalski in. They had a bye week. He hurts his hip the next week. He's been out for a little bit. They're trying to get him back. I think that he's available, but they just kind of been restructuring this. And Hinsman came in to play left guard. They kicked Donovan Jackson out the tackle. Hinsman did a really good job. And so the question was, do you bring in a younger center and leave Hinsman at guard, or do you slide Hinsman to center and bring Austin Sareveld back in, who had played a little bit earlier this year when Donovan Jackson was out? I think what Ryan
Day go well though, right? From what I've read, Sareveld,
it went okay. Like, it was a guy who really hadn't played, and he was replacing a guy who's probably one of the top guards off the board, and so I think that there was obviously a little asymmetry in what you would expect there. He played okay, but it isn't an ideal situation. They've basically lost 3 starting guys in the last 6 weeks. And Seth McLaughlin, played a ton of ball. He's played for Bama last year. He played in the college football playoff. He's incredibly smart. He's been a leader. He's been a fixture, played in big games. So, like, this, TBob, being able to get – and he's smart. And Indiana's had a bye week, so they're going to have different fronts, being able to ID the Mike, the linebacker. It's a pretty significant loss. But I think they're going to go with Hinsman back at center, Austin Saravel to guard. I think that's the first choice that they have. They'll see where that takes them. I mean, if you have to make adjustments, you make adjustments if it's not going well. But for Hinsman sitting most of this year, came back in guard, played really well, and I think Seth's been great for him. And so hopefully he's ready to take this over. I think they're planning on kind of passing the torch again at the end of the season, just going to happen a little earlier.
Yeah, going to be fascinating to see how those guys perform. It feels like, once again, Will Howard's legs here could make a massive difference. If you're talking about an O-line that, could maybe use a little help, a quarterback that could create. It's been one of the best elements of the team thus far this entire season. What do you think, winning a game of this magnitude, what it's going to take? What is Will Howard's role this weekend?
I think when you get to this point in the season, TBob, it's the role is like find a way to win. And I know they were a little hesitant running Will early in the season because you don't want to just subject your quarterback to needless hits early on. But you saw in that Penn State game, if you watch that towards the end, I mean, they ran the clock out in 4-minute offense. Critical 3rd and 2s, like you're running Q power, you're running stutter, you're running some zone read, like you're getting downhill and getting behind guys. So I think this is a game. You look at 3rd and 2, if I'm Indiana, like I'm alerting the quarterback run. You got a guy that's 6'5", 235 pounds. I mean, if he can't go get behind a guard, get behind a fullback, pulling 2 guys around and go hog it up in there, for 3 yards, 4 yards on a 3rd and 3, like that has to be an option, because when it is, what that does to the coverage on the back end, you can't be as exotic. You have to make sure you have a safety down to make sure your box count's good. And then that can free up some stuff on the outside. So if you want to throw it, you can. But I think it wouldn't shock me if Will Howard has between 5 and 7 designed runs in this game.
Yeah. Bobby, so it's very funny. I'm looking at the chat right now, and, as I'm trying to hype up Indiana at the beginning of the show, it's all fucking Ohio State's going to kill him. Indiana sucks. And now, as you're talking, it's all like, Ryan Day sucks. He chokes in big games. He's going to get outcoached. What is your opinion of Ryan Day kind of in these moments, and like just how much does this one mean to him on Saturday?
I think it's a big one. Like they talked about his record. It was 2-7, and after it was 2-6, they lost to Oregon. Then the game, it's 2-7. You beat James Franklin, it's 3-7 now.
2-7 against what? Top 10 teams?
Top 5. I think
top 5 teams.
Here's what's amazing, T-Bob. Like Booger McFarland had a pretty good line. He's like, stats are like bikinis. They show you a lot, but not everything. I had a scout tell me one time, NFL scout, he's like, stats are like hostages. If you cut them up, they'll tell you whatever you want.
Wow. Definitely darker, but yeah, I mean, true. Actually, true.
Yeah, 2 ends of the spectrum there. But like Ryan, I think is like 8-6 against top 10, but now 3-7 against or 3 and maybe 3-6 or whatever against top 5 teams. So it's like, okay, what's the difference between 4 and 8? I don't know.
Yeah.
The opinion of someone ranking them. But he's done a good job, I think, in the big games for the most part. I haven't seen him Mario Cristobal any of them and have any like glaring clock management issues or just failure to understand the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
Like what needs to happen. But it's at home. It should be a pretty big game. The environment should be good. I think Ohio State is more talented than Indiana. And unless they go out and it's a turnover fest or like there's crazy inclement weather, which I don't think is going to be the case, talent should rule the day here as long as they go out and execute, which this team's been getting a little bit better each and every week, T-Bob. But we'll just have to see if they can overcome that the loss of their center, Seth McLaughlin.
Locke says, this guy's doing the thing where he says the name of the person he's talking to. He says T-Bob like 4 times. Well, here's the deal. Me and Bobby, I go on radio with him and Jake Hester quite a bit. Sirius XM 84 on Fridays afternoons. They do Meathead Radio. We have some great times. Bobby is the Renaissance man of Renaissance men. Okay. He's a professor of finance. He's an entertainment host, former NFL player, and a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Okay. So this is not, I do feel you. I do that too sometimes. You go on a show, you don't really know the person, say their name, but you create an ingratiating atmosphere. But no, me and Bobby are close here. This is a legit, this is not a forced thing. This is legitimate here. Bobby's my favorite.
Yeah, I'm kind of taking offense to that because I genuinely like you and I know you, TBob. I guess
I know.
that's why I
know.
use the name as part of the salutation.
I agree.
There's no greater disrespect than like not learning someone's name that you see on a regular basis. And then part of it's probably purely habitual. You have a number of kids like I do. I think neither one of us have as many as Jacob Hester. But when I'm talking to my kids, I'm constantly repeating their name to make sure they're alert and engaged. And I think that just permeates the rest of my conversations now, just because it's sheerly habitual to make sure the person I'm talking to is paying attention.
Dude, what do you do? I've got a couple of these in my life right now when you just know a person entirely too well to ask them their name. Like maybe you've been seeing them for like a few months now. And like and unfortunately the people that I'm thinking of, it's not in situations where like my wife is with me or anything. So I can pull that check. I mean, like, I don't know what to fucking do, dude. I'm out here helpless.
Okay. See, the wife, you're a vet because I'm like, I'm gonna introduce you to my wife. That's the first answer to the problem. Like, hey, this is my wife. How are you doing? Me, yes. Oh, yeah. She just dives on in there.
How pissed are you though when they don't say their name back? Like your wife introduces and they're like, oh, hey, nice to meet you.
You be a champ and say, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, you got to call the audible. Okay, like save the play. All right, save the play for us. Scramble around a little bit. Outside of that, I mean, I guess if you don't have their number yet and you feel like there could be some benefit, be like, hey, you know what?
Okay, yeah.
Like, you know what? Here's my number. Shoot me a text with your name on it, and that way I'll lock it in then. Like, sorry, I don't have my phone on me. Like, pretend like it's not around or something. I don't know. But that way you might be able to get something. Hopefully they don't give you a nickname or something that you wouldn't recognize them by, but it might be enough to stimulate a little bit in there.
See, there you guys go. Renaissance man. All the good advice. All right. This game's in Columbus. I think it's massive. What do you think happens this weekend? I think Ohio State wins by 10. I could see a world where Indiana keeps it close though. What's your read on this game?
I said this. One of my friends asked me who covers the NFL, and he's like, "How do you really feel about this game?" Like, okay, it's like if Ohio State goes out and screws around and doesn't play well, plays with their, to quote Ben Hartsock, plays with their food a little bit. I think it's anywhere from 3 to 7. If Ohio State comes out, execute, and plays well, I think it's more 10 to 17. But I don't think it's going to be one of those games where, like, at halftime, you're looking up, it's like, all right, it's 31, 10. Like, let's change the channel. I think it will take time to grind Indiana down because, like I said earlier, TBob, they just don't make mistakes. Like, you're not going to see guys just running free or, they're not just going to blow up protections where you can have sacks, like things like that. Like, Kurt Cignetti is a confident dude. Confident guys, to me, are always prepared individuals, unless they're just like blissfully ignorant and are incredibly Pollyannic by nature. Like Kurt Cignetti, he speaks with conviction. He's smart and he's supremely confident because he knows his guys are well prepared and they're a veteran group. A lot of them played a ton of ball, albeit maybe like JMU or a Kent State or smaller schools. But these guys have been in big moments. They played a lot, so there's nothing really that rattles or surprises them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's actually a very good breakdown of the dynamics at play here, score wise, coming into this weekend. You think it's going to be? I want how often does that stadium reach its full potential? Will we get full potential shoe this weekend?
Listen, I hate this because it's the noon game. They've had 6 straight noon games, TBob. Like at LSU, I mean, no one's even coming to that. It's embarrassing. Like Hester keeps yelling at me. He likes the brunch game. I'm like, I don't like the brunch game. I don't mind it for like a game that you just want to wake up, TBob, play and get over with. Like,
yeah. Go about your day. Yeah,
that's great. So let me go home and watch the other good games. This game would be a nice 3:30 matchup. I don't need it at night before the Michigan game and leading into the final week, but I think it'll be maybe not 100%, but it's going to be probably in the 90s. I understand you win this game, you're getting in the CFP for sure, regardless of what happens next week, but you want to obviously win them all, but it'll be big. there's been a big push by the players. There's been a big push by the coaches, former players in the media. Like, let's get there. I don't care if it's hard to drink at 9 o'clock in the morning, TBob. You got to be a pro. You got to power through. Whatever you got to mix it with. You get a hot toddy. It's going to be a little chilly.
Start with liquor, guys.
Yeah.
That's the key here.
Yeah.
We got to drop the hammer. Like, once you beat down those walls with liquor, then your beer starts flowing. Everything starts tasting better. The buzz kicks in. You got to start hard here.
Maybe it's a little JMO in the coffee, whatever it takes to get you going.
Great.
It's going to be a little chilly, but I think it's going to be a pretty good environment. Maybe not 100, but definitely in the 90s.
Hell yeah, man. Bobby Carpenter, the legend. Can't thank you enough, dude. You're the man. I love everything you do. And yeah, thanks for making some time. I know you got a super, super busy schedule. So you have like
I got a question for you though, before we get out of here.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of a rough one for your Tigers lately, but is there a chance that the Rebs heading down to the swamp could suffer the same fate as your Tigers did last week?
I don't think so at all, dude.
Really?
I think okay, so everything in my not okay. I don't want to sound like a douche here. Of course, everybody knows everything's about fucking matchups. I think that Ole Miss is just an awful matchup for Florida, where LSU was not. I think that LSU, you saw Braden Swinson almost get home on Lagway a couple times. Yeah. I think Ole Miss is like, that's one guy LSU has. Their pass is pretty good. LSU's been this year, but Ole Miss, I mean, you got Perkins, Amon Miel, and Ivy, Nolan Piggies, the whole fucking deal, right? It's the same reason why I thought Ole Miss would beat Georgia, but then thought Georgia would beat Tennessee because of that Ole Miss pass. And you've had Lagway, they can't really run. Also, LSU rushed for like 180 without sacks against Florida, and everybody's using that to be like, oh, like here locally, like LSU's running it back. And I'm sitting here like, no, I think Florida's defense kind of sucks. And so like, but the problem is LSU's offense sucks right now. You know who doesn't? Jackson Dart and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So like, no, dude, I think it's going to look much more like the Texas game of 2 weeks ago than the, maybe not as bad. 'Cause I think maybe Texas defense is even more complete in some ways, but I think it'll be closer to that than Billy get another win in the swamp. LSU's not very good, Bobby, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, but
they're in the SEC, so they must be fucking awesome. You know, I mean, they should be in the fucking playoffs, dude. How about this? The most depressing stat over the last 3 weeks, LSU's offense is 122nd in the country. 39% of their plays go for 0 or negative yards.
Come on.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's tough to overcome, because I mean you're literally working behind the chains at that point. You know,
like what?
That's almost. I mean, that's over a third. So one out of every 3 downs, you're not gaining any yards or maybe losing. Like that's so basically you're operating on a 2-down system. Like you have 2 downs to be able to get there. And one of those is going to be third and probably going to be a 3rd and 6+. So that's not a great
fucking insane. CK says, what would LSU Indiana line be? Neutral site, LSU -3.5. No fucking chance, dude.
I'm telling you, like they make you beat them. Like they're not going to just line up. Like you're not going to be able to run through Indiana.
No,
like, I know they haven't played anybody of note, but if you go watch those games, TBob, like they beat the hell out of teams.
That's what I'm saying. Go look at. I mean, this is a super flawed data point, but look at the common opponents between the two teams, right? Nebraska gave Ohio State all they wanted. Indiana completely dominated them. Michigan State both beat the hell out of it. And it beat them a little worse, whatever.
But Michigan State, that was the first time they had trailed all year, TBob. It was 10-0. And then they proceeded to just hang 41 on them straight in a row. So it's like, hey, okay, hold on. We got a little slow start. Kurt Signetti probably went over there and shook some guys around a little bit. And next thing you know, they're just rolling up touchdowns after touchdowns. So like they haven't played one, but they also haven't messed around with anybody who they shouldn't mess around with. And I think that that's an important note as well. When they come out and they execute, they play well. They don't have negative yardage plays. They don't screw around and just rely on talent to go beat teams. And those teams are really tough to beat because you don't ever get them in 3rd and 12 because they execute too well.
Bobby, when's the right age to show your kids Lord of the Rings?
Oh gosh, my 8-year-old, like dude, what you want? Here's the thing. This is the one thing, like Lord of the Rings. I'm a big Tolkien fan. Obviously, I've watched them all. I haven't seen the new Rings of Power season yet.
Whenever, after football season, when you have time, I would say
It's
season
hard.
2 is actually
I try to put it on after the Saturday night game, and I'm usually pretty drunk and really tired, and I make it through like 15 minutes. I keep falling asleep.
And the first 2 episodes are kind of boring. I mean, it's a flawed show, but it ends very strong.
I heard the end is really good.
Fucking awesome.
Okay, that's good then. But my 8-year-old like loves it, dude. And we would drive down to Destin. And I guess if you're making a 12-hour drive, if you can load up like all 3 Lord of the Rings extended edition, it's getting you 12 hours. It's getting you a good 12 hours. So he would love it. And I try to teach a sense of desperation in my kids, maybe not the desperation that you and I had, but like maybe the desperation like our dads had, like trying to make it out and like make a name. And my parents tried to embrace that with us. But my son, I'm like, listen, man, what do you do to get the job done at the end? Like when you want the ring, what do you do? And he's like, you bite the finger. Like you gotta go for it, man. You bite that son when you need the ring.
Oh my God. Using Gollum as your motivational example, dude. Fuck yes.
Show me someone, T-Bob, in any type of literary fiction or even nonfiction that's more relentless than Gollum.
True.
I mean, Schmeagol, you talk about grinder. That is Schmeagol right there in the dictionary. His whole life is pursuit of one thing. At what cost? At all costs. Food, sleep, safety, does not matter. And eventually his life, because he's willing to bite the finger off and fall into the lava pit. Like I give him credit.
I have never thought about that as a positive, as what could be like, or as what could be like a good learning lesson about persistence and the willingness to overcome adversity. That's fucking fantastic. See, guys, Renaissance man, Bobby Carpenter. Thank you, Bobby. You take it easy, brother.
My pleasure, T-Bob. Have a good one.
Later, dog. God, I love that man. Hit the like button, sub, guys. We got more comments, or we got more topics to get to here. This would answer a lot for me. What's your line for IU Penn State? I would have Indiana favored, like let's say neutral site. I'd have Indiana favored probably like 3.5 over Penn State, I would think. All right, other news here. I want to play a couple of videos for you, and I'm going to apologize, guys, because this first video is a little bit longer. This is the Army uniform reveal video. This is 3.5, or sorry, excuse me. This is 3 minutes long, but it's a fun, good history lesson about the uniforms that Army's going to be wearing for Army Navy.
Today, a milestone in the modernization of the United States Army is taking place at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It is the reorganization day ceremony of the new 101st Airborne Division, better known as the Screaming Eagles of World War II fame.
First activated during World War II, the 101st Airborne Division, better known as the Screaming Eagles, were routinely called into action when the need was immediate and extreme, becoming known as a relentless fighting force that never turned down a difficult mission. All of these battles during this time led the 101st to their greatest rendezvous with destiny the division had ever seen.
Then suddenly, from France, we're heading for Belgium. Under cover of fog and bad flying weather, the Wehrmacht launches a desperate counterattack. They're throwing 25 divisions at us. Our lines reel back. The Battle of the Bulge is on.
Germany launched a massive attack in the Ardennes forest. Heavy fog grounded air support for the United States. The goal was to seize and control the 7 roadways of Bastogne. With the extreme winter conditions, there were minimal supplies, and the 101st were outgunned, outnumbered, and surrounded on all sides. The German troops saw this as a time to ask for the 101st surrender, but this band of brothers had other plans.
Here it comes, guys.
On the 22nd, the German commander, ridiculously enough, demanded surrender of the surrounded town. I just replied, nuts, for I knew that one word best expressed the feelings of the division.
That belief, combined with their disruption, preparation, and flexibility, proved to be the key difference as they were able to fight off the enemy and claimed another big win for the Allied powers in World War II.
Through it all, no one doubted for an instant that we would hold the town under any sort of attack the Germans could put on. The 101st Airborne Division has met and defeated the Germans in Normandy and Holland and will continue to do so whenever called upon.
On the 80th anniversary of the Siege of Bastogne, we pay homage to the Screaming Eagles, who prevailed against all odds, holding their ground against a massive German offensive in the Ardennes forest.
Damn.
Go Army, beat Navy.
This generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny.
Oh my God. A rendezvous with destiny there on the back of the helmet. The Army and the type, like the telegraph that would have been sent to the German Army when he said nuts. Is that the ultimate fucking D's nuts jokes that's ever been made in the in human history? I mean, here they are. Death surrounds them on all sides. And remember, in the Battle of the Bulge, you were talking about the Germans' final play, okay? So a desperate band of Nazi killers surrounding you on all sides. You got no supplies. You're freezing cold. You are fucked. They tell you to surrender. What do you tell them? Fucking nuts. Suck it, nerd. If you want to surrender, you're going to have to come in here and get us. That's that good shit. That's amazing to me, dude. I'll never forget where I was when I first read about this story in Military Heritage magazine. I was in like 8th grade in my room. Pretty sure I probably had like Creed or something playing on the CD player. Just had this mattress on the ground. And I remember reading it. I was like, what kind of courage does it take to drop that nut slide, dude? Awesome. What a uniform to honor that. And what a weekend. Now, this is for Army Navy, obviously. But Army has a big one coming up this weekend against Notre Dame. And there's a really good write-up on Monken right now in The Athletic that just talks about how it's interesting because Army has to be perfect in the game of football in order to win. And so they have set up a system that demands perfection. When Monken first got the job, I guess it was a while ago now. I'm trying to think, was it 2013? When Monken first got the job, though, they told here's a little anecdote from his first workout. This is an excerpt from the article. Quote, the workout itself comprised of 13 oh, by the way, it's 1 degree outside. First winter workout of the Monken era. The workout itself comprised of 13 stations. If anyone made a mistake, everyone started the station over. I hope not to embellish too much, Prohl says. That's who they're talking to here, that coach telling the story. But I think we went for about an hour, 45 minutes. No one wearing sleeves, no one wearing gloves, and we didn't even get through one station. It was an introductory lesson about both the program's non-existent margin for error and the fortitude required to avoid slippage. And since the Army hasn't changed, neither has the approach. And it's fascinating to think about a job like Army in the modern college football era because it obviously comes with a mass of disadvantages in terms of how you can recruit, all these other sort of stuff. But or maybe disadvantages is the wrong way of saying it. I would say it comes with a mass of unique circumstances that for the most part probably make it harder to win on a major level, but do come with some interesting quirks. For instance, if you're the head coach of Army, there is no fundraising. There's no players lined up outside your door demanding more money. There is no transfer portal. These are guys that made the choice to be there. Like Bob Frost. These are men, one and all, that have decided to take the road less traveled, the hard road, the selfless road. And I love how the article in The Athletic closes out. It says, quote, Nobody in the world wants to get shot at, as Monken notes. But there are people willing to do so for the sake of their country, and they're in that room. Now they're quoting Monken, the head coach. This place is hard. Everything they do is a challenge here, but they stay here. They're here for a reason. So sure, Army may not be the most talented. Hell, Bryson Daly, the man who currently, I think, leads the nation or second in rushing touchdown to Ashton Jeanty, their quarterback. Bryson Daly had 0 offers coming out of high school outside of Army. And look at my guy now. I mean, let's fucking go. Lock in and beat Notre Dame. Because in this instance, Notre Dame are the Nazis. Beaumont there says disadvantage is right when you think about not really having 300-pound linemen. I know, but here's what they had to say about this offensive line. Quote, the offensive line, in Monken's estimation, is the most talented and possibly most ornery unit he's had at West Point. All the way down to wrestling each other to settle arguments about who's tougher. Savages is how Bryson Daly refers to that group. Mean, tough, violent. Right tackle Lucas Scott says. The standard is really, really high in our room. Here's the fucking deal, Notre Dame. I know you're more talented. I know you're bigger, stronger, faster, but I also fucking know you ain't tougher, okay? And you're going to have to prove it this weekend because guess what? You're going to have to kill these motherfuckers if you want to get over on them. I cannot wait. Let's go, Army. Kick some ass this weekend, dude. A lot of David versus Goliath go down this weekend. Not to be outdone, though. Here is the video on their uniforms for Army Navy. This is only a minute long, but it's also, imagine this, really badass. Skipper, I can't get out. Remember me with the Jolly Roger.
Born in the battles of World War II, the Jolly Rogers have been freedom's guardians of the sky. Forged by the United States Navy, victory is the standard. After 8 decades, the new chapter in history will be written. If you hear them coming, fear the bones.
My God!
Here's to victory. Here's to the bones.
Here's to victory. Here's to the bones. Did you see the missiles on that fighter pilot? Here's to the bones. Are you shitting me? So the Jolly Roger has always been badass, of course, used in by pirates back in the day. Here you can see a lot of the famous pirate flags from throughout history. Edward England, kind of that traditional, Richard World, maybe the more traditional was the Jack Rackham, cross swords, Jolly Roger. I always liked Blackbeards. It's just like little fucking drinking skeleton stabbing a heart out. But the Jolly Rogers, I guess, Jolly Rogers has always been badass. I had no idea, though, that there was a naval flying group named the Jolly Rogers, or that they literally have the Jolly Roger on fighter jets. And that's insane to me. Fear the bones might be the most badass tagline I've ever seen in my entire life. Damn. Let's fucking go, dude. Army, Navy. I mean, as if it couldn't get any more badass this year. We get those 2 uniforms. By the way, I really like the Navy uniforms. It's Under Armour, which is kind of lame, but that like shoulder with the Jolly Rogers on it. Oh, that's the good stuff, guys. Do we have anything else to get to today? I think that might be it. I think we might have hit on everything. Carson, I don't have a lot to say here. Carson Swessinger, UCLA linebacker, former walk-on, currently leading the Big Ten in tackles, 3rd nationally in tackles, leads the FBS with 69 solos, also studying bioengineering. Shout out Carson. Okay, kids, you can be anything. that you want to be. William Anthony, TBob, I feel that since you watched your first One Piece episode and Luffy wants to be king of the pirates, Navy's going to win. Ooh, that's a good point. I didn't mention on this show, but I did randomly watch one episode of One Piece the other night because I heard that they're making the One Piece, which is going to be a retelling of the story that's going to be the same, but like maybe with better pacing. I have no desire to catch up with all One Piece. That said, the first episode, pretty fucking good, dude. Pretty fun. T-Bob, do you have a favorite war movie? Okay, so probably I'm gonna say fictional, but don't mean fictional war, right? Like, because nonfiction, probably the most amazing movie I've ever seen in terms of a nonfiction war movie would be They Shall Not Grow Old, which Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson produced. Of course, that's where they took a bunch of real footage from World War I and they stabilized it, up-resed it to 4K, they colored it, and they put sound behind it, right? So it literally feels like time travel. It is haunting and mind-blowing now. But if we get into fictional war movies, Saving Private Ryan's incredible. Obviously, it's not number one, but Saving Private Ryan's probably top 5 for me. I think I would say Platoon is checking in at number 4. God, I don't know, between Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, and Apocalypse Now. That's a lot of good Vietnam movies. But I mean, honestly, I'm just gonna go to the top of my list because I can't do a top 5. Actually, I don't think I have never had a movie probably in my life affect me like the movie 1917. And I think All Quiet on the Western Front is an incredible one as well. The remake that Netflix did a couple of years ago, and it's absolutely haunting. And it's actually like an anti-war movie, which you could argue that a lot of war movies are not. But it is deeply, deeply unsettling as well. But when I saw 1917 in theaters, I was alone, and I remember sitting there, and there's that scene at the end where he stumbles upon that group that's about to go into battle, and you can clearly see these are like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and one of them is singing a song, and I think they're having chapel, basically. And I don't know what came over me, but I was overwhelmed to the point where I started sobbing, crying, could not stop. And it lasted for like 20, 25 minutes. It lasted all through the credits. I was completely alone in theater. There weren't many people there. They left, and I sat there, and I just continued to cry. And I felt like it was so weird. I've never felt this so intensely. I just felt absolutely haunted by the sacrifice of so many young lives over such a pointless endeavor. I mean, trench warfare in World War I, and shout out to the Blueprint for Armageddon series from Dan Carlin, because he really opened my eyes to this. But like, just the most awful shit. Nobody's gaining any ground. You're not actually doing it for anything. At least World War II always has that weird angle of like the Nazis are they're straight up fucking evil, right? It literally is good versus bad. What are you fighting for in World War I? Expansionism, territory, land. You have all these old world notions of what mattered, butting up against new world technologies and ways of killing each other. And it creates this horrific fucking experience where we don't know about stuff like PTSD. You just think you're going to keep people on the front lines the whole time. Now, eventually they learn through the course of the war, but you're sitting there in trench warfare. You're getting constantly shelled in no man's land. These craters from the bombs are filling up with body parts and carcasses and toxic fumes and poison water. And it's just absolute fucking hell on earth that all these 18, 16, 17, 19, 20-year-olds were subjected to for no reason. Hundreds of millions of lives sacrificed, a generation of young men sacrificed for no reason. And it just really hit me, man. It really hit me. And then it leads directly into the Second World War, the single most violent outcome in human history. Yeah, Robert. Yeah, I know. They discovered shell shock in 1950. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. They finally, like, right? You had a name for PTSD, but it was a mass slaughter of millions, and about 20 years later, it happens again, says John. I know. And here we sit in I think they call it the Westphalian Peace, but the longest peace between the major powers that we've really ever had. Like, no, like, all-out war. It's been a long time. And the further it gets away, the more people forget. I'd be lying if I'd say that I don't have real dark fears that we're gonna fuck it up sometime. I hope not World War III, dude. I can't do it. Oh wait, I want to talk about Kenny Dillingham. That's right. I forgot about that. Thank you, Austin M. Reminded me with the forks in the chat. So I saw an excellent Kenny Dillingham anecdote where basically Dillingham, so the entire year he's been like, fuck everybody. Like, they don't know us. Like, who cares? Like, what matters? Don't just go out there and play, because nobody expects you to be good. So nothing matters. Just go out there, play your best, kick ass. Right. So all of a sudden now Arizona State's great. Everybody's coming around to him, and he put together a cut up to show the team of pundits and shows and other things praising Arizona State. And I love this story. He puts it on in the team meeting room. The team starts booing. They start booing and yell at them to turn it off. So they turn it off or whatever. And then Jordan Tyson, he told, I guess a local paper that said, they weren't rocking with us preseason. Why do we need you all now? And I love that kind of us against the world mentality that Dillingham's put into the Sun Devil team. How about this as well? Of the 29 potential starters for Saturday, 27 transferred in the program over the last 23 months. So just further proof that the path to being immediately relevant is clearer than it has ever been. And again, I think Arizona State wins this weekend. And that's why college football is fucking awesome. Because although we all know who's going to be best, right, guys? We all know we get Arizona State and BYU in an elimination match that no one would have seen coming before the season started. Hell yes, dude. That's awesome. What else are they going to say? Oh, we got to get to this too. 5-star quarterback Juju Lewis, right before the show, commits to Colorado. Now, he does this on the Pat McAfee show, but just take a minute and think about this. By the way, he decommits from USC and then commits to Colorado. So you want to talk about the Prime effect? Here's Coach Prime. 2 years. Here are the Colorado Buffaloes, I said. 2 years after winning one game and being considered the worst team in all of college football, having no hope whatsoever. Here is Colorado playing in a massive game this weekend, in the driver's seat for a trip to the Big 12 championship and by extension a playoff spot. They have the likely Heisman winner on their team. They have the likely first overall pick on their team, and they just flipped a 5-star quarterback from USC and Lincoln Riley. Are you fucking kidding me? It is so clearly Prime's world, and we are all just living in it. It is insane. Texas Rock says Kansas wins. I mean, look, I'm not saying they don't. I think Colorado wins a very close one. I think like 31-29, 31-28, something like that. I think that Kansas is much better than their record says. We talked about in our preview show. I think they've rattled off 2 ranked wins in a row. I think a lot of Kansas's early losses came to teams that we thought sucked at the time, but don't actually. Right? Like they lost to Illinois. They lost to Arizona State. They lost to, one other surprising ranked team. I can't remember who. But no, I'm with you. I don't think Kansas is bad. And now they've beaten 2 ranked teams in a row. They're going to try to make it 3 in a row. I still do think that Colorado wins by a little bit. A little bit. Bo says, not really TBob. USC stole Longstreet from A&M, so Prime got lucky here a little. Well, I would say this. Juju Lewis is one piece of it. I think the bigger deal is here Colorado sits 2 years in and edge of the playoffs, Heisman winner, number 1 draft pick, 5-star quarterback. Regardless of context, that's fucking insane. Like, that is at UNLV. Thank you. That was the other team. But that is actually insane to try to wrap your head around. That's crazy. It's crazy. All right. I think that will do it for today's show. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know it was a little weird, right? I probably stayed way too long on the Indiana stuff early on. I had a ton of fun with Bobby. We had our nice military side quest that we got into, and then we wrapped it back up with some Big 12 madness. Mac Brown's also staying at UNC. I don't know that means anything, but he is. And Gladiator 2 comes out tomorrow. And I would love to watch the Gladiator 2 preview on the show, but I'm not entirely sure that it wouldn't get us demonetized, so I'm not going to. Oh, he says, yeah, I agree. I was just saying about the QB situation. He didn't steal him, if we're being honest. Oh, you're saying that Longstreet, they took Longstreet over Lewis? Okay, maybe so. I don't know the situation well enough, to be fair. Yeah, Gladiator 2 is getting some good reviews. I agree. Austin, I would love to come to Tempe for Snaps game day. That'd be very fun, but I'm going to be in a bar, Don Juan Cigar Bar here in Baton Rouge, drinking mezcal, smoking cigars, and watching LSU get their ass kicked. CK says, can't even watch commercials without getting demonetized. What a world. We maybe could, CK. We probably could. I just don't want to risk it because if I'm wrong, and I feel bad, I've done this a couple times on the channel already. I've been wrong. And Aaron's not fucked it up yet, but I have, where I've gotten videos demonetized, and we need every little bit that we can right now. So, sorry. All right, guys, hit the like button, sub, huge thank you. We love you. We'll see you this weekend. We'll be live. If you know we're live, hit the bell, you get notifications. I know we already get too many notifications, but if you want to hit a bell, you'll know exactly when we're going to go live. All right, guys, we love you. And we'll see you on the next episode of Snaps. Later. Okay, hold on. I got one more thought. I lied. Zach Pitcher says Vandy beats LSU by 50. I will say this. I dove deep on Vandy statistically this morning. And it's actually shocking how similar the two teams are in terms of where they rank on almost every major statistic. Like there's just not that big of a difference. They're both 6-4. Actually, let's just maybe do this real quick because this is my show. Aaron's not here, and fuck you, I can. But let's go to scoring offense. Okay, LSU's 9, Vanderbilt's 11. Okay, let's go to scoring defense. Vanderbilt's 11, LSU's 13. Okay, let's go to total offense. This is LSU 6, Vandy 15, so kind of a bigger gap there. Total defense, Vanderbilt 12, LSU 13. Turnover margin, Vanderbilt 4, LSU 11. Okay, so big difference the other way. Time of possession, LSU 2, Vanderbilt 3. Total defense, Vanderbilt 12. LSU, we just did that one. Sorry. Sorry. I think y'all are getting the point, right? These are 2 third-down conversions, LSU 1, Vanderbilt 3. It's actually like if you were an alien and you came down to Earth and I just laid out the data in front of you and you didn't know anything about the brands, you would not feel like LSU was the clear winner here. So I am more nervous than I was going into this game. But I think LSU wins. I don't know. Am I an idiot? Fucking probably. Who knows? All right. I love you guys. We'll see you later this weekend for some more snaps. Allah.